Alright guys, we are revisiting the air intake, and if you look at my last video on this, I showed you how to get, I showed you that I did this, and then I showed you how to get this far, so there's kind of two videos already out there by me on how to do a short ram air intake with a little pod filter, but this time I got something new, and let me first start off by saying some of the issues I found with just doing this. It made this engine bay area a bit too loud, in my opinion. You could hear every time the piston sucked in. It had a very throaty thump every time the piston hits, every time it sucked back in. So it made this area a little loud. It made the engine a little bit louder as the RPMs first started off, and then it kind of quieted down once it was able to spool up the engine and get air flowing. The other thing is this pod filter on top of here is directly in the area of where all this dust and dirt gets kicked up. So somebody made a comment and said, don't you think it might get a little dirty? And I started thinking about it and said, yeah, it's probably not a bad idea to figure out something else. So let's take this guy off, come back over here, and this is what I've come up with. One could call it a snorkel, a cold air intake, whatever floats your boat. So I'm just going to give you a quick overview on how I've made this and showed you what I've done. I'll pause the video and show it assembled in parts so you guys can see how I'm doing this. So we have our intake. Let's just say our little intake. I'm using 1 1/8 inch to 2 inch hose clamp. I'm just using one. Then I'm using a 1 1/4 inch. Don't mind this. This is an old coupler I've had that this got scratched up and banged up. But this is a 1 1/4 female PVC end to a threaded end, and that's what I have here. So let me show you guys what I've done. All right, starting with the end of, all right, let's start with the pipe. This I got from Lowe's Home Improvement Store. It's 1 1/2 inch inside diameter. I think they call it like pool hosing or something like that. This is the type of hose that they use for when you have that long pole and you have a little like suction pad that you end up hooking this hose to, and you run it across the bottom of the pool to suck up all the dirt. That's what this hose is. I'm starting off with 4 feet, just so that when I go to fit it up, I've got some extra left over, so I'm not cutting it too short. And you're going want a little extra left over, so that as the engine, for my application, mind you, feel free to try something new. This is just to spark ideas, but for my application, one end is going to be stationary on the body, and then the hose is going to go down and touch the engine, which actually moves with the suspension. So I'm going to need a little bit of slack to make sure if I go over a bump, it doesn't want to pull on it and yank it out. Break everything. So 4 feet of this stuff, it was about $2 a foot, so 3-4 feet should do you. And comparing it to the intake, this is a very, very tight fit, so that's a big plus. And it's there is some ribbing on the inside, but for the most part it's pretty smooth. I've already managed to get this in there, and it's a tight fit, so solid connection there. Now, my question is, or what I'm trying to fabricate is, how am I going to get this pod filter to stay on? How am I going to mount it to the, somewhere on this golf cart here? So here's what I've come up with. This is something I had laying around my house. I had a couple of these. When I went to go look at this, this pod filter, and you may have to go to the store with your pod filter depending on how big, the intake is here, the little silicone coupling. But this fit on here nice and snug as well. Mind you, I'm not using this because this got chunked up. This fit on here snug as well. So I said, okay, here, you know, this is a solid possibility to use. And when I went to go put the smooth side over the hose, it barely didn't fit. Does not fit on this hose as is. I couldn't quite cram it in there. It just wasn't going to work. So what I did to actually, this is the completed side. I'm just showing you guys how I got there. How I got this to all put together was I drilled, let's set this down here. I drilled on the north, south, east, west and east side. I drilled 5 small holes running down the smooth side here with, I think it was a 1/4 inch drill bit. So just drilled 5 holes very close together, and then you can use something, please be careful, don't hurt yourself, but you can use something like a hacksaw, you can use a Dremel tool, you know, a box cutter. This one was broken, this is just for an analogy. A Dremel, I mean, whatever you need to do to cut a decent slice up the side on the north, south, east, and west side of this. And what that does is it takes this side, the smooth side, and it puts it into 4 quarters. And that allows this circle to expand and contract when you put a hose clamp on there. So after I drilled 5 holes, and then I used a Dremel, and I mean, they turned out really nice. It's just nice 4 grooves every quarter turn, and it allowed me to kind of spread the quarters apart and slide the hose in, and it was a very tight fit that worked out really well. And it didn't really want to, you know, pop itself off with it wanting to compress like this. And it wanted to stay, so I said, okay, let's move forward with that. So put it on there, over the hose, and then I just used some electrical tape to make sure there was no air leaks, and then used a pipe clamp. So this isn't the greatest video, I apologize, but I'm working with what I've got here. So once I slid it over, just did 1 wrap. You don't need to go thick on it. 1 wrap of electrical tape, and then the pipe clamp. And what that did was the PVC pipe wanted to spread as it went over the hose, but then the pipe clamp cinched it down over the end like this. And surprisingly, it's solid. It is on there. It does not want to come off at all. Now, mind you, this is not, you're not pulling on this hose, yanking on it, worried about this fitting to slide loose. So my experience so far with this is that this seems to be a very solid connection that I'm not going to worry about, you know, driving across a field or near the beach, and all of a sudden it just goes, whoop, pops right out from the bottom. So that's how I got this to work. And then the other end, once I got this, I'm going to put it on the golf cart, figure out how much I need, cut it, and then slide it in the other end, because this is a lot easier to get in and out of than this here. So now I had to think about location. You know, where on here, other than the engine bay, because I'm trying to do this better, I'm trying to make it an upgrade, I'm trying to do it right. Where on here could I put this filter where it's out of the way, it's not going to get a bunch of dirt and dust or get in the way of people. So I was looking at the service port on the back of the golf cart. And let me see if I can show you guys. You know, if you're working on this kind of golf cart, you know what I'm talking about. There's a port back here. With the rear passenger seat, you really can't use this port for service. It doesn't really let you get in there. It kind of blocks it off. Pretty much from there on out, you just have to go up through the bottom when you put a passenger seat on. And that's fine, especially with the lift kit, because now I have all this room. I'm looking at it straight on, and I can just crawl underneath here and do what I need to do. So for me, it was no big deal to say, let's take that port, this inspection port, service port, and drill a hole. And I don't have a drill bit that's 1.5 inches in diameter, or 1.25 inches in diameter. So I did the best I could. It's a little rough, and I know it's not the best handiwork, but I'm working with what I've got. I was very careful to make sure that this hole was actually just a tiny bit smaller than the threads were in diameter. And what that allowed me to do is that, since this is soft material, I can actually thread this through the service port. It'll actually kind of thread itself into the plastic. And that works out really well, because once I thread that in there, I can put this guy on, and it's mounted to the body, solid, out of the way, protected by the front seat and the passenger seat. To me, this is a very good area to put this. And you know, your golf cart, your setup might be a little bit different, but this is where you get to have fun with it, customize it. So give me a second, I'll show you what I'm working with here. All right, you can see how I've put it through, and it actually thread itself into this plastic. So now I have a male end coming out of the little cover, and I can put this guy, slide it on there, fits nice and tight, and put a little pipe clamp around that. I can put this on, and it will go through the service port, which is, I guess you can kind of see it through there. It'll come out right from underneath here, and then it can come across here and go right into the intake. So let me get this together, cut it to length, and show you guys the finished product. All right, let me show you what I've got so far. So not the greatest video, I apologize, guys. All right, so I got the let's see, that intake header on. The hose kind of goes up and down, has enough slack here. It doesn't hit anything hot. It stays suspended, and it turns going straight up right there. And show you guys, sits right there, out of the way, tucked behind the passenger side of the golf cart, in between the seats, right there. So we are up out of the engine bay now. We're in cold air, out of the dust. So let me get the pod filter on there and finish up this video. All right, get back to this video. Let's see where we left off. There you go, guys. It is mounted right there. It's not too noticeable. It kind of blends in so it doesn't stick out like a sore thumb. It is protected, out of the way, serviceable, away from water and dust. Comes down, goes right in the intake, and I guess the last thing to say is that pipe fits on there or the hose fits on there so tight you don't even need a pipe clamp. Well, this is probably going to be the last upgrade to the intake system. So, you know, have fun with your golf cart. To me, it's a cold air snorkel intake. I mean, it's fun to do. I think all the parts in total cost like $8 for that hose and that fitting. You know, I'm gonna guess $8. So, you know, have fun and try new things. If you see a need, try and fabricate, engineer something. Who knows? It might be the coolest thing. out there. You might find something new. So far, to me, this seems like a very reasonable upgrade. Nothing fancy, nothing that you need special machining or tools to do. So that's the fun of upgrading a golf cart. And yeah, there you go. You can actually get a little view of it underneath there. It's out of the way. Well, guys, I hope this video just shows that you can really do anything with the golf cart as long as your imagination kind of carries you, and you know, so with some handiwork you can come up with some pretty cool stuff. All right, I'm gonna post this. This will be just before the Rex Open golf tournament. I'm gonna try and get some video of us driving around and having a good time. See some people's reactions, and see if anybody else is going to bring out their golf cart. I'm going to hopefully have that up next week, and we'll keep going from there. I found out a solution for the light bar, and going to start working on that hopefully soon. And another thing that somebody asked me was, you know, about this winch here. What are the reasons I use it for? And I forgot to mention in the last update video posted just before this, the other main reason, and probably 75% of the time that I use this winch, is to load it into the truck safely. That is why I did that originally. I don't like the idea of just taking this thing and driving it up on ramps onto the back of my truck. It just isn't safe. If it falls or something happens, I could get hurt, or, you know, this whole thing can get damaged, and then all the handiwork, time, and effort spent into it just kind of goes to waste. So I'm going to be showing how I load it safely into the truck at some point. And if you have any ideas, shout it out. I'm open. This is a lot of fun. And hopefully this spurs on any ideas that you guys might have, or open any avenues to fix a problem, or just to do something bigger and better. But have a good one.